Hi, everybody, and welcome to this very special episode of the Dr. Keith Darrow podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Alissa Parady from IHS. Alissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Keith. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I know it's taken us a little while to get you on here because you've been kind of busy in the last few months. So can you tell us a bit about your role at IHS and how that's transformed over the last few months?
Yeah, to say it's been busy feels like an understatement. What folks might have heard is that in February, I was asked to serve by the Board of Governors of IHS as the interim executive director, as our former executive director departed. And in April, that role was made permanent, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. But my history with IHS goes back about, at this point, 11 and a half years, and oddly beyond that. My foray into hearing healthcare started in one of my past careers when I was working for otolaryngology. The American Academy of Otolaryngology had neck surgery, and I was managing their state affairs. And actually, in that capacity, I was attending IHS conventions and interfacing with IHS quite a bit on legislative issues going on in the state. In 2011, I started with IHS, and interestingly, all around that time, I also was experiencing my own hearing loss, and so really had a great connection to the work of IHS and was experiencing it in my day-to-day life. When I came to IHS, I was working as the manager of government affairs. Our organization was, I think we had 8 or 9 staff members at the time. Today, we've grown to 22. So we've seen a lot of growth over that time. But when I came in, I was managing our federal, state, payer advocacy and fundraising efforts, and of course, was interfacing with a lot of different folks in the space, industry, professional groups, consumers. So really had a great handle on what was going on and learning the history of the field and IHS. And over the course of my 11 years in this role, I became the director. I took on chapter affairs, and I interfaced a lot with our board. So became really intimately knowledgeable of the profession, the history, and then fortunately over that time was able to be part of some of the recent history that we've experienced.
Well, first off, that is an amazing story. I didn't even realize all the details that before IHS, you were at the academy. So you must have started when you were like 9.
Sweet of you. Thank you. No.
Which is just wild to think. So I understand now how you sort of came to be. And I got to tell you, I won't say any names, but a little birdie had approached me back in about February or March. I can't remember the exact timeline in 2022 and was like, there's some big changes happening at IHS. Everybody's so excited. We're really rooting for Alissa. And I was like, wait, what? She might be the head, like for Alissa to be the head honcho. That would just be amazing because I really think you've got that keen sense of what the boots on the ground need, right? Like sometimes you see a separation, let's be honest, of here are the providers, here are the people every day serving the patients. And then here are these ivory tower organizations. And there seems to be a big disconnect. I think with IHS, that is really starting to come together. And I think that's a big role. And I think you're the person to fill that.
That's really, really kind. And over the years, to me, one of the fundamentals of being good at what I did and the way that I served IHS and its members was to be connected to what was going on, clinically on the ground in, practices and know what was going on in the industry as well. So I was going out to chapter meetings. I was connecting with, our members, prospective members, really hearing from them, what are the challenges that they have in their day to day, and that gave me a good opportunity to go back to the team and say, here's what I'm hearing. Of course, our team members are also listening to, those in the field all the time. And so, we get to collaborate on identifying where can we do better? What can we do more to help position our members for success? So, being able to have that firsthand experience with hearing loss, sitting in that booth, countless times, and being able to connect with the consumers and the manufacturers just gives me a really a rounded understanding. And so I was just so honored when the board approached me about this role and what that could mean to applying a lot of the knowledge that I gained over the years and the ideas that had come forth.
Well, I know I am super excited. And look, I'm not an HIS, right? I'm a neuroscientist, I'm an audiologist, but I wholeheartedly believe in IHS. I wholeheartedly believe in the hearing instrument specialist and the role they play in hearing healthcare. The way I look at it, there are 42 million people going untreated. Mm-hmm. The last thing we need is infighting amongst hearing healthcare professionals. The last thing we need is some sort of a separation of, well, I have this degree and you have this certificate. Like, we have to come together in order to help the 42 million people. There are not enough of us in hearing healthcare, right? And that's sort of the term I like to use rather than separating out audiologist or hearing specialist. Like, it doesn't matter. If your heart's in the right place, if you have the right mission to help the 42 million people, I could care less what letters come after your name. Just do the right thing for your patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I agree with that. And what some folks don't even know is IHS, we are the only organization that represents hearing aid specialists, but we also have members who are dispensing audiologists and physicians who play a role. Of course, we've got front end staff and we've got manufacturers who are also a part because we can all learn from each other. As you said, there's not enough of us to meet the need. And the need is growing because people are recognizing how important communication is, that there are meaningful solutions with hearing aids and the services that go along with those. So it really is an exciting time. We've also seen studies that show that hearing aid specialists are more accessible in like the rural areas, right? There's mobile clinics, there's in-home visits, there's nursing home visits. So we all have to be able to help meet that need. And IHS and our members are so proud to be a part of it. We're all qualified to help with hearing loss and hearing aids. And so we all need to be able to do that, especially when we know, and maybe this is a preview of questions coming down the line from you, but as this market is about to change with over-the-counter hearing aids, even though we know direct-to-consumer has been around a long time, we have to work together to meet these needs.
Well, I think so. That's a great segue into, and look, I don't want you to read the company line. I don't want you to read your talking points. I want to know, where do you see IHS? What's the mission? Like, what's deep in your head that you want to see happen at IHS in the next, it could be 12 months or the next 5 years? Where do you see this going?
Well, right now we're in this foundational kind of reinvention moment where I'm working directly with my team. We've just done it. We've filled some positions that were open. And so we've got folks who have amazing ideas and experience, and we get to start to put those to work. The IHS of 10 years ago is not the IHS of today. And so, for us, it really is about looking at where the profession needs to be in 5-10 years, and how can we position them to do that? So we focus on modernizing and updating our training tools, making sure that our continuing education and professional development offerings are they're modern, they're relevant, they meet the needs not only on the clinical side, but on the business management side. We know that managed care has become a bigger part of practices. Most practices are engaged in some way in managed care. And so we have a committee and work to establish a updated insurance guide this year to help our members do it better, to comply with all of the relevant laws and make sure they get paid for the work they do. Obviously,
do you have a committee to stop managed care? Because I want on that one.
I think it's too late. I think the terrain is just rolling down those tracks. So at the very least, we need to know how to do it well. We need to know how to do it right. And for IHS, it's been, making sure that every qualified provider can be a part of every program where they belong. So even a few years ago, we had hearing aid specialists added into CAQH ProView, which just relates to credentialing for managed care, but it's a meaningful step forward because a lot of health plans require you to be part of CAQH. So, we spent a lot of time, I personally spent a lot of time working on, the perspective of Medicare covering hearing aids and making sure that hearing aid specialists are a part of that if it moves forward. And, we got as far as we could. And now it's up to, congressional Democrats to figure out if this is going to move forward. But, we have to enable every qualified provider to be in a position to help consumers with their hearing loss so that we can address accessibility and affordability issues. So, all of that is wrapped up in the work that we do on a day-to-day basis.
That is certainly, and I think that's why we align so well, is that goal of increasing access, of increasing affordability, that is going to help more of the 42 million people and helping them to navigate the process of insurance or managed care. I mean, it's so confusing for the patient. It's confusing for us. And so I think that that's great work you've done to make sure that the hearing specialist is listed and is acknowledged by the CAHQ and is able to take part in helping more patients.
Yeah. It's something that's so important to us.
So let me ask you, I know we're on the heels, we're a few months away from the annual convention, right? So I want your thoughts on this. I want what are there themes? Are there different speakers, topics? Like, why this year of all the years to come? And I know it's like a birthday, right? Like 70th or something.
It is. It's a big year for us. We're so excited. And there's several new things. When I jumped into this role, it was like, okay, let's get started, because it was, February, and this is right around the corner. We're going to be in beautiful San Antonio, Texas, in mid-September, the 15th through the 17th. And we've got great speakers like Mr. Keith Darrow. We're really excited to have you speaking about tinnitus. We have, there's so many unique elements. One of the things that I don't know personally, I felt that our event may have suffered from is the perception that this is an event for owners, and it's not. It's a meeting for everyone. If you're a clinician looking to enhance your skills, if you're an owner looking for new business management tools, we offer all of that. And this year, we're uniquely offering two separate tracks. There's a clinical track and a practice management track, and folks can bounce around as they desire, but there is content for everyone. We have some amazing keynotes. We are doing a CEO panel, which we did several years back. It was highly successful. Folks really love that. So we brought the CEO panel back this year so folks can hear about what's going on, from their perspective. We are enhancing our expo. We're adding clinical skills labs on a couple of valuable areas, and professional headshot station. There's so much going on. We brought back our pre-convention workshops. We're going to have sermon management, and we're going to have a managed care and compliance pre-con workshop. So there's so many new elements that we've added, and then we're bringing back some of those components that people have really enjoyed over the years. So I'm so excited. And the content, the seminars themselves, including yours, I'm so excited about. They're going to be great.
I'm excited too, and especially when I look at the two tracks. Like, I don't even think I want to. I don't want to be in my talk. I want to go be in the other talk. I think that's going to be the hardest.
You do have some stiff competition.
For people that are no. Look, it's going to be a great convention. I was sort of studying everybody that's going to be there. I mean, I just feel like I'm going to walk away with so much knowledge. Let me ask you. You said something about the CEO panel. What is that about?
Yeah, so we're going to have 5 of the major manufacturer CEOs participating in a moderated panel.
With security guards?
With security. No security guards. They'll probably bring their own. So
nobody throws anything at them?
They might bring their own. No. I think it'll be really kidding. I think it'll be really fun. So that'll kick us off with a general session on that Friday morning. Yeah.
All right. So now I have to ask you, right? Now I'm giving a talk on tinnitus.
Yes.
Dr. Douglas Beck, who doesn't know him, is coming to talk about cognition. There's clearly change happening, which is great, right? So I know for a while there, it seemed as though these were like, dare I say, taboo topics when it comes to the HIS. There's been this attempt at separating, well, you're an HIS, so you can't talk about tinnitus. You can't think about cognition. I mean, it's crazy. And I feel like IHS as a whole is embracing these changes and the need for patients. So tell me a little bit more about the thinking, because to be totally honest, when I submitted a talk, I wasn't sure that it would be accepted because I didn't think IHS would be that welcoming of the topic. But I'm super excited that you are. So tell me about some of the changes in the mindset.
Yeah, and I think, the topic of tinnitus it's not a new one for us. In fact, we developed a tinnitus care provider program several years back. We've got a virtual offering this November.
Awesome.
And the fact is that the best delivery of hearing healthcare comes from somebody who has a holistic view of the needs of the client or patient. And so to be able to understand how cognition plays into this, I mean, that's so critically important. And, we know, and uniquely, the prevalence of individuals come into practices who also have tinnitus. And so it is our responsibility as hearing aid specialists, even if you have a unique scope of practice that limits some of the things that you can do, you need to understand how all of these pieces play together. And specifically with our tinnitus care provider course, one of the things that I think is so valuable about it is not only do you get an education in, what does it look like? What are some of the treatments, but also understanding, where's intervention needed? Where do we need to make sure that we're sending somebody to get the right professional help if they have a more severe tinnitus? So it's really about being the most rounded hearing healthcare provider you can be, certainly knowing what you can and can't do, but also making sure that you are not just thinking about somebody has a certain type of hearing loss, but then how does that affect the rest of their lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, I just want to go on record. You used the treatment word first before I did, because I thought that was off limits. So I think that's great. Now tell me, how do you foresee? I want to dive more into the cognition thing, because I understand the HIS, the role of tinnitus, the certification courses you have, and I'm really excited to bring to the convention sort of a new look to treating tinnitus and all the options that are out there from A to Z. What is approved? What has evidence-based research behind it? And I think the audience is going to be pretty excited to learn that of all the different treatment options out there, there is still not a doubt that going to the hearing specialist, being treated by us, is the most successful and most evidence-based approach to helping a patient reduce their tinnitus. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Mm-hmm. But what do you see in terms of cognition and the role of the HIS, be it cognitive screenings, be it just talking about the role or the correlation of hearing loss and cognitive decline? What does the future look like there?
Yeah. And, it's early, I think, in, our foray into understanding in the ways that research are starting to allow for us to do that, right? We know, as you said, cognitive decline and hearing loss are correlated. And so we present, and, not a clinician. So there are folks who can speak to this vastly better than I can, but we know that, cognitive abilities do impact somebody's ability to hear, communicate effectively, right? So to be able to understand the role of cognition in that, again, makes hearing aid specialists and audiologists, who we also serve, better clinicians. So understanding the research gives us advantages for our patients, right? And so that's really, I think this is an emerging area, and there's more, there's screenings that are coming into this space that providers can explore and figure out if that's something that they want to get involved with. We're not necessarily taking a position on that. And there's just more learning to do in that area. So at the very least, let's make sure that all options are on the table and folks can determine what they might need to help serve their clients better.
So I'm gonna push you a little bit more. So I hope you don't mind the challenge.
Okay.
You use the words early and emerging. And it might be my complete lack of patience. So we're 11 years into the correlation of untreated hearing loss and cognitive decline, increasing the risk by as much as 200 to 500%.
Right.
We're almost 6 years in on understanding that treating hearing loss is the single most modifiable factor for preventing decline and developing dementia. With that said, when is the right time? When do we finally start saying, look, this isn't, it's really not a debate anymore, right? Like there's not, and it's not just one paper, right? There's umpteen papers linking the two. There's umpteen papers showing that treating hearing loss improves cognitive function, can increase scores on cognitive screening tests, et cetera, et cetera. So when do we finally say, okay, this is in our purview? I mean, hearing specialist, right? With a loss of audition comes a drop in cognition. That paper came out, 10, 12 years ago. Right. So what is it going to take to get there so that there is a protocol or a process laid out by IHS or call it best practices for integrating cognitive function and cognitive screenings?
So it's a great question and something that, we need to certainly spend more time looking into. We have an education committee that drives our training programs and our professional development programs, and is really a critical group for helping us to identify the areas where hearing aid specialists, can learn more, can offer more. And, we obviously, as I mentioned, have to be cognizant of our current scope of practice and also be considering, where does cognition screening fit into that presently? Where might it fit in the future? And at the same time, making sure that our members have access to the types of research that you mentioned, the Lancet Commission piece of the research that came out, I think it was in 2020, is very impactful. And so we don't want to encourage, hearing aid specialists and members to be saying things that aren't tied to research. And it's thrilling that there is more research in this space. It really is. It's changed a lot of the dialogue. So it's been exciting seeing that come out. And then to be able, we actually have a research-oriented magazine coming out in this next quarter, tapping into various aspects from what's going on internationally with the World Report on Hearing, down to some of the interesting things that the NIH is working on right now. So we get to evaluate the research, figure out where we get to play a role, and make sure that we're advising patients accordingly.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that and hope you didn't mind the little push there. I just, I want to see, like I said, my goal would be, the way I approach it is very simple, and I'm sure you do too as a patient. And I always think about it, if my mother, who's up in the age category, if she were to go in to see a hearing specialist, regardless of credentials, what would the process look like? What would the conversation feel like? And what would the treatment recommendation be? I think some of the issues we have is that if my 70-something-year-old mother were to call 10 different offices and ask some of these questions, she would get 10 wildly different answers, which I think sometimes creates this sense of confusion amongst patients. Where do I go? Who do I trust? Do you have a recommendation at IHS for managing that?
Certainly. And I can appreciate that there are patients who come into a hearing aid specialist or audiologist office and they're sure they have hearing loss. You test them and then it's like, well, everything looks normal, but there might be something else going on, right? And so we need to be able to be prepared to help those patients and clients understand, why that might be happening and integrate in the rest of their healthcare team if there might be something else that could be identified. So that team-based care is so incredibly important important. And, every hearing aid specialist, every audiologist, undoubtedly, they've got their kind of medical home for their patients. Where can I refer if we need some more help over here? And being able to identify, those folks who do need the referral or need some additional assistance just in their personal care with that hearing aid specialist, because they might have some sort of other deficiency. They need to be equipped to help with that.
Sure. That's great. So let me just ask you one of these I think this will be kind of the final question. We'll start to wrap up here.
Okay.
You mentioned maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, the three most feared letters in hearing healthcare, which is OTC.
Yeah.
I think OTCs they already are the greatest thing that ever happened to hearing healthcare in that they now force us to shine the light on the services and the value that we provide and take all the focus off the widget. And so what is the approach with IHS in dealing with the fear that is out there and perhaps even some of the panic? I mean, we're on today, Bose, right? Amazing acoustical engineering facility decided to opt out of the over-the-counter market. I believe it's because patients want a specialist. They want a medical professional in some way, shape, or form to help guide their treatment journey. They don't just want a widget. So how do you think about over-the-counter or direct-to-consumer?
Yeah, the fact is direct-to-consumer has existed for decades, right? And now what we have is what's going to be a more formalized classification for that, which will actually offer some ability to deal with those actors in the field, right? Because a direct-to-consumer hearing aid doesn't really fit into the traditional model of regulation. And so, several of us, certainly in like the advocacy world for all the provider groups, we've been like anxious to have a way for the FDA to actually go after bad actors. And the FDA's, been kind of saying like, well, we're waiting for these new regulations. So from a regulatory standpoint and being able to address where there are problems, I think there's actually going to be some positives there. In speaking with hearing aid specialists who've been in this field for a long time, they're not all scared. It's actually some might be surprised to hear this, but, they're like, bring it on. This allows me to focus on doing better. They've been having folks come into their practices for years with their direct-to-consumer hearing aids saying, why doesn't this work? And they get to position themselves. So do we see more hearing aid practices becoming hearing practices? Are they going to be integrating over-the-counter hearing aids? Perhaps. I suspect we'll start to see that if we haven't already with the direct to consumers. Of course, sure. We know this is just the foray for these individuals to come in, identify their hearing loss, get some help, and then realize, like you said, where that professional plays a really critical role. So I think for professionals in the field who have been members of IHS, they have more information than those who aren't, and perhaps are slightly less scared because they can see the future. They are hearing about different trends. They're learning about different technology. And like you said, with Bose, which, came into the field and is departed, they've also experienced these ebb and flows with the new entrants into the field. It doesn't work because consumers want personalized care. So as much as there's a lot of uncertainty in really how traditional hearing aids may be handled going forward. We don't know what these final rules are going to look like. At the end of the day, hearing aid specialists are about the best professionals I know who can adapt and overcome and work towards the future. So IHS will be there to help support them in doing that.
I completely agree with your sentiment. I mean, if I had to, right? I mean, there's a couple of things that if I had a time machine, I go back and fix. One of them is all the publications that have come out in the last, it could be 30 years, right? Where they seem to tie, right? Like improvements in quality of life and using hearing aids.
Mhm.
Improving this and hearing aids. The issue there is it wasn't the hearing aid. It was not the widget that did it, right? So if you could change the title of all of those papers to treating hearing loss improves quality of life. The treatment of hearing loss reduces the experience of tinnitus. Treating hearing loss as compared to hearing aids and reduced risk of cognitive decline. It has no, there's no just pick up a hearing aid off a shelf and that will reduce your risk of falling or reduce your experience of tinnitus. That has never been shown. It's always been hidden in the data. The specialist, the treatment process is what actually helps older adults and younger adults actively age, remain confident, stay in their home longer, stay passionately independent. It really, the widget is this much a part of the treatment program. And I think that the OTC and direct to consumer will really highlight that and set us on the right trajectory in terms of making hearing healthcare exactly what it needs to be, an essential part of active aging.
Absolutely. That's great.
So,
yep.
Alissa, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited. Hopefully we'll get together and have a coffee down in Texas. I know it's going to be a beautiful convention. We're going to get out the word about this. I hope a ton of people show up. How much room is there in this type of place? I mean, it looks huge.
There's plenty of room, but I would say if you're coming, book your hotel room sooner so you can get into our block. And
Absolutely.
The other thing I would say is if you're planning to come, register by July 14th so you can get the early bird discount. We want folks to come, and you might as well get the best price for it.
Absolutely. Why pay more just to be lazy and sign up late? And book your flights because they ain't getting any cheaper.
Book your flights.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Alissa. Hey, one last personal question. Favorite movie?
Oh, gosh, you're putting me on the spot.
I know. I knew this is the one you wouldn't be ready for.
Oh, gosh. Oh. Back to the Future.
Speaking of time machines,
I
might have planted that seed in your head there. Sorry about that. Excellent. All right. Well, take care, Alissa. Have a great day. Thank you so much for being here, and blessings to you and your family.
Thanks. I so appreciate it. Great to see you, Keith.
Take care.